Aloha aina, and welcome to Voices of Truth, one-on-one with Hawaii's future, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. I'm Ehuke Kahu Cardwell, and here we are today at Thomas Square for Hawaiian Restoration Day, Kala Ho'ihoiea 2006. And with us today on the show, we have Dr. Kawika Liu. Welcome.
Aloha.
Aloha. Welcome to the show. Come on and stand right over here with me. And Kawika, you're a pediatrician, aren't you?
Actually, I'm board eligible in internal medicine and pediatrics.
Ah, very good. Very good. So what made you decide to get into that?
Well, actually, I started when I moved back home in the politics department, political science, and I did my PhD research in Samoa. And really that kind of opened me up to what Hawaii was like probably 100 years ago or more, in terms of the connections that people still had with the Aina, with who they were and what they consumed. And then I felt that teaching wouldn't be enough as far as being able to make a difference. And about that early, after I arrived, I met Dr. Blaisdell, and he and other people encouraged me to go to law school. And I should explain that I'm an asthmatic. I've been asthmatic since I was born, basically. So at the back of my mind, I was always interested in medicine, but because I graduated too early from college, I didn't really have time to finish my prerequisites. But in my first year out of law school, I was supposed to be clerking with a judge, but he retired, so I ended up working in the leeward side with victims of domestic violence, and it really opened my eyes up to the fact that the law, well, I already kind of knew, but that intervention in the law is only kind of the rear guard actions, if you want to say.
Last resort.
The last resort,
Yep.
and that the system really doesn't work for a lot of people, and fundamentally I think that the law doesn't recognize relationships, it doesn't recognize spirituality, the Western law, and it's based on the individual and punishment. And I didn't think any of those things, to me, it wasn't pono. It wasn't something that fit with the reality that I experienced.
So it didn't seem like it fit for you.
No, not at all. And I saw that it was actually doing damage to people. Friends.
The American legal system.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the way from quiet title actions where people's hanao was being taken away from them, to the prison system, which incarcerates probably 60 to 70% kanaka maoli for 90+% drug-related offenses, to just kind of across the board, that it's a system designed to work for those with privileges and resources, not for people who don't have those.
Yeah, very good. So then the legal system didn't seem like a fit for you to pursue. So then what did you do?
Then I finished up my prerequisites, and I wasn't able to get into a regular medical school either here in Hawaii or on the continent, so I went to medical school in the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean?
Yes.
Wow, you go all over.
Yeah.
From Samoa to Hawaii to the Caribbean.
Well, I think I actually was very privileged to be able to do that because I went to school in Grenada, and Grenada was where President Reagan got that to be elected, used the invasion to get reelected. A lot of people didn't realize that kind of the medical school was used as an excuse to invade that island, and that there are still political prisoners today from that era. And so while I was there, I was fortunate enough to be able to organize a health fair at the prison where some of those prisoners are still incarcerated. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see them, of course, but we did get to have an experience of what it is like to be incarcerated in a third world prison, which is a much different reality. And just in general, to be in the Caribbean where they don't have CAT scans, they don't have MRIs, they don't have the technology, and people, there's a much different system of healthcare, and that, in comparison with here, to me, again, it reinforced the fact that we have a thin veneer of the first world over a third or fourth world reality. That
yes.
We're not sustainable the way we are, not sustainable on levels from the political to spiritual to health to cultural, across the board, that this is an artificial reality we're living in.
So when you went to the Caribbean and you went to school in Grenada and the invasion happened and all that, what impact did that have on you?
Well, the invasion happened in 1983.
Yeah.
So,
But the after effects were there.
The after effects were really seeing again, being from Hawaii and then being in a place which is sort of colonized in a neo-colonial setting, and how the medical school unfortunately is a colonial center, a little center of America in the middle of that country, and many medical students tended to carry American attitudes with them. So I heard a lot of the same things which are directed towards us here: lazy, stupid, Grenadian time, oh, that's the way they do it here.
Yeah.
And it made me realize further that we had to, assert a different way of doing things. And also I would try to remind people that, that was what I hear back here. And I didn't, if you're going to say that, please don't say it in front of me.
So you went to school, you graduated, and then you decided to move back to Hawaii, yes?
Well, yeah, I actually I've just finished my residency, 4 years here in the University of Hawaii residency system. Yeah.
Gotcha, very good. And what's it been like for you so far doing the residency here in Hawaii?
Well, I think that the hardest part for me is to see that that there's underrepresentation. It's still majority group people who are becoming physicians here. That there still isn't a lot of representation of Hawaiians and other Pacific Islanders, more so probably Filipinos and others. But that there's this huge cultural divide, and that the system is still very much oriented towards a Western mana'o of cure rather than healing or health. What I would mean by that is that for me, a lot of times we need to focus on healing or health. That is, for example, someone has a terminal cancer, we can't talk about curing that, and maybe even applying, giving that person chemotherapy or other things may or may not be appropriate. But if we look at healing the ohana, the person is not just herself, but part of a network of relations. That's a much different outlook, and I think it can lead to better outcomes, because making sure that the person has the best quality and most dignified life that they can, rather than alive for the longest period. On the flip side of that, for chronic diseases, I think we also have to look at the ohana, the family, the community. We can't just look at, okay, Mr. Kealoha has diabetes, how are we going to treat him with medications? We have to look at the whole context, from historical to cultural to spiritual to the physical.
Yeah, very good. That leads me actually into my next question for you, which is, when we talk about health, it's not just health of people, it's health of the land, health of societies, health of cultures, all those different bodies. How do you see the work that you do as fitting into that?
Well, I'm hoping that the work that I will do will help to bring together the strands that have made up my professional career, the graduate work as well as the legal work, and now the medical work, in terms of helping people to understand that indigenous people can never be healthy without the healthy aina. That when the land runs red because of the erosion, because of the development, that is a koko. It is bleeding. That the fact that we don't have lo'ikalo in Waikiki is a huge reason to me why we have so many unhealthy people, so much obesity. The fact that we see the military flying overhead or driving by, that's a kamaha, that's a pain on the land, that's a pain on the people, the pain on the lahui, or the nation. And if we understand that we're never going to get people healthy unless we start talking about healthy land, healthy ocean, healthy nation, and that it starts with the individual and family level, that it really starts with saying that, I have certain kuleana, you have certain kuleana, our families have kuleana. We have to be able to, in return, then the aina will malama us. We perform our kuleana to each other and to the aina. The aina and kai and the lani will malama us in return. I mean, the whole concept of mo'oku ahao, the wake and papa and ho'oku kalani and haloa, that those are all to me, significantly still tied to health today.
Yeah, so it's all connected.
Yes.
All connected. Kawika, come on over and stand here a little
Okay.
closer so we get a good camera shot. So are we talking about a system that's kind of like top down or bottom up or both?
Well, I think that there has to be reforms on both levels. On the bottom level, I think we need to have a return to community ownership of health resources, that we have to realize that Western physicians are never going to be able to do it by themselves, that every person is their own primary care provider.
Their own health practitioner.
Yes, that we recognize when we're sick. And if we ignore these illnesses, whether it's being tired or just feeling out of sort, that we are ignoring our body, and that we're taught to do that. We're taught that a pill is going to be the cure, that we go to another person who's an expert instead of listening to ourselves. Not to say we can't, we're going to be able to diagnose illnesses ourselves, but we need to recognize that. On the community level too, to be able to realize that we need to own our own resources, that we cannot just be letting it, be bought out by other people and having other people assume that kuleana, to the point where I would hope that eventually communities would own community hospitals, for example. And from the top level, there's ali'i trusts. And those ali'i trusts, and we'll name it right now, Kapiolani and Queen Emma Foundation, those are ali'i trusts, whether they deny it or not. And the ali'i, to be called ali'i, had not just the status, not just the power, but they had kuleana, and they only achieved that status and power by recognition of the people. There's many mo'olelo which tell that unjust or unpono ali'i would be overthrown or displaced. So it's time to recognize that Queens and Kapiolani, now part of HPH, Hawaii Pacific Health, they have kuleana. In fact, to me, they form the basis for the healthcare of the nation. And they could certainly start by helping to provide healthcare to uninsured, kupuna, keiki, a relatively small proportion, and work out from there to having eventually healthcare for all Hawaiian nationals, and whoever visitors might be passing by.
Yeah, so they actually have quite a large responsibility.
They deny that responsibility.
Of course, I know, but in fact, they have a large responsibility to fulfill.
Exactly.
And we hope that they do.
Yes.
Kawika, what would you say is the biggest difference between the Western healthcare system and the native healthcare system here?
Well, there isn't, because of what happened, and up until the 20s, there was actually licensing of kahuna lapa'au. Maybe not the 20s, a little bit earlier than that.
And those are the medicinal herbal.
Not just medicinal, there was a whole range, all the way from medicinal to obstetricians to orthopedists to any Western and quite a few non-Western specialties. There were kahuna who specialized in that. And of course, with invasion and with suppression of the culture, many of those fell out. But there was a huge range, but now there's becoming with the work of Papa Ololakahi and others, there's becoming more recognition of those. But it's still a much different system. Whereas individual practitioners, there may be families who have practitioners as part of their traditions. Some of them may or may not be coming out. And they would, they're kind of like, they don't have their own clinics and things like that, although some of them are now working with community health centers or outside. But they're much more on an informal basis, whereas on the Western system, you make an appointment to see the doctor, you pay your insurance premium, you pay your copay, or you don't if you don't have insurance.
Yeah.
And it's the relationship is based much more on commodification of health.
As in money.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so if I hear what you're saying, one is based according to need, and the other one is based according to ability to pay or not, yes?
Well, of course, everyone has need.
Sure.
Medical needs, but yes, the quality of care to a large extent is dictated by your ability to pay. Not entirely, but I would say to a large degree, because subspecialists don't have to take Quest insurance, for example, the state health insurance for people that are needy, and so there's a limited range, and as you have less and less resources, you have less and less access to certain treatments.
So would you say the native healthcare system had an aspect of it that was much more preventative based than the Western healthcare?
Definitely, and I think that's the thing, is that every person, regardless of ethnicity, I believe, has a kuleana to be proactive. You know, you cannot, if you have diabetes, you cannot expect that the medicines are going to cure you.
Yeah.
We have to, realize that the choices we've made in our lives up to this point produce the health the way we are right now.
Yeah.
So if we want to eat McDonald's every day and we want to sit around watching TV and we want to, drive our SUV to the corner store, then the end result of that is going to be bad health. And I would say more so than that, not connecting, saying that the food comes from Safeway. No, the food doesn't come from Safeway. And that when we over here we have the pa'iai, the poi being pounded. That's a direct connection between the kino lao of the akua and our bodies. And even if people don't believe that spirituality, there's a cultural connection. That when we eat those kind of foods, then we restore those connections and we restore the health of the lahui and we restore the health of the aina, because in order to be able to eat that way, we have to be able to practice traditional customs. We need to have access to aina. We have to have access to the kai and to the vai.
Yeah, very good. So let's talk about the health of the aina, the land. What do you think is important? What's not being done now that should be done to restore the health of the land, the health to the land?
Well, I mean, I think that very simply, there's too many people. That goes with the fact that we are in a fourth world or third world resource-wise. I mean, we don't have oil. We don't have the commodified resources that are needed to run our cars that we see driving by behind us.
So everything has to be shipped in from the United States.
Exactly, or from Japan or from
some other foreign country, yes.
And we don't, and what has to be, I think, is to a realization that we have to live within our means. Even if this wasn't Hawaii, even if this wasn't the Aina Hanau, even if there weren't Kanaka Maoli here, islands can only sustain a certain amount of people, and the most fundamental limitation is water. And we can't keep on, spending water for EVA and to water golf courses, potable water. We can't keep on breaking cap rock through explosions or things like that. It has to be, the malama vai, malama aina, malama kai. All of those things are so important, because otherwise, no matter who you are, you're not going to be able to live here, unless they have nuclear power desalinization.
So overpopulation is a big thing. What's
Exactly.
another thing that we could start to work on to improve the health of the land here?
Limits on development,
Okay,
limits on the number of cars. Those are, we don't need to have so many cars, and we don't need to have so many people driving one person in a car.
Yeah.
The buses are underused. I'm not supporting or not supporting mass transit, but I think something has to be done because it's just not practical. I like to ride my bike. I do have a car and a motorcycle, but if I have my preference, I would just ride my bike. And, being respectful to bike riders, I think that would be a good part of helping to heal.
Good. So what is something that some, our viewers often like to get tips in terms of what thing that they can do, find their kuleana, whatever size it is, small, medium, or large, something that they can get into an action with right away to help improve the life of the aina, the life of the land. What tips would you give them on what to do?
I would say to malama kekai kekai, aloha kekai kekai, to take care of relationships. That's because people who come from the land need to malama to take care of those relationships.
So from the ocean to the ocean.
From the ocean to ocean, but also human to human. For example, simple things like not going to bed angry, of eating as families, of taking family walks, of taking that time to realize that we don't have to be rushing 24/7, and there is a different way of living than the way we are living right now.
Good. So let's talk now we've talked about the health of the kino, the body. We've talked about the health of the land, the aina. Let's talk about the health of the nation. What about that? What do you see needs to be done there?
Well, I think that the ability to exercise ea, to exercise...
And what is ea?
Ea of sovereignty, exercise, which is inherent in everything.
Yeah.
Because it's all linked through genealogy. The ability to exercise that is only put forth through the ability to be healthy. I mean, for example, a lot of times the emphasis has been on top down. Okay, we need the Kumukanavai, the constitution. We need the kingdom. We need this, we need that. But in fact, how can you have that if so many people don't have, I would say, they're not healthy. They're not healthy on any number of levels. So to me, it's from the bottom up. The nation will be, I think it's Maikai Loa that all the people are leading the efforts right now, from the different kingdoms to in the UN and whatever, and for those people who support the Akaka bill, whatever different, things that they want to support, but they forget that it's not going to, it doesn't matter. It's going to be replacing one repressive government with another unless you have people who are actually educated to make that choice. In order to be educated, they have to be healthy. And, part of that is the mind, body, spirit. Part of that health is the mind, body, spirit, and getting the mind healthy means education, but you cannot be healthy without your healthy body and spirit as well.
So it sounds like the health of the nation is one that is definitely not top down, but from the bottom up. Yeah.
And I think that if one looks at, because I think that the change we need is revolutionary, not evolutionary. And if one looks at, one can put aside the political, but if one looks at successful revolutions, it wasn't built from with some exceptions, it wasn't built from the top down. It was built from the bottom up. That people, especially in the last century, realized that it's the people who will be the makers or breakers of any kind of fundamental change. And for example, Gandhi, he definitely recognized that. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X.
Yeah, very good. Also in your talking about these, it sounds like they're very definitely all connected. You can't take one part out and really separate it from the other.
Yeah.
It's all connected, the health of the people, the land, and the nation.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that we can do to help keep that all together? Because the occupying force, the foreign cultures, try to divide that up and separate,
When we talk about Vahipana, about sacred places, there is no such thing to me, because it's all Vahipana.
It's all sacred.
So we cannot say, across the street because there's a building sitting on top, that's not a Vahipana. Because I don't know the mo'olelo of that place.
Yes.
Or across the street at the high school or the Blaisdell, that's not all Vahipana, because there's we talk, I remember, I think it was Parle Kanaka Ole talking about walking on the shoulders of the kupuna. Literally, when you've been, living on some place for 2,000 years, there's iwi all over this place. Even if we're not talking about Papua and Wakea and Ho'okukalani giving birth, literally there's iwi all over this place.
Bones of the ancestors are buried everywhere.
So to take care of that is to realize that, development isn't okay just because it's in a developed place already. That, this whole distinction in the Hawaii Supreme Court between developed and undeveloped, it makes no sense. Sorry, from my law background, that Waikiki is not lost. I remember
Waikiki can be recovered.
Yeah, it can be recovered, and maybe the all-white isn't the best way of doing that. I can remember a lot of times when I would go surfing at dawn, I could imagine the forests of Niu and the ulu that used to be there and what it must have been like. And it could happen again. Yeah, we're not talking about living in a grass shack.
Yeah.
We're not going back, we're not throwing away the MRI, we're not throwing away the PET scanner, but we're talking about using these in the proper context.
Very good. Kawika, what would you, I'm sure there's some viewers, maybe young viewers, who are maybe thinking about getting into medicine as a field or law as a field. What message would you have for them?
Well, I would say that the more Kanaka Maoli that enter into medicine, the more Kanaka Maoli that enter into law, and the more those become indigenized, the better the health of the Ainu, the better the health of the Lahui.
What can they expect when they first start out to pursue those fields?
Americanization. That it's at each successive level of education is Americanization. So it's to be expected. Why? Because we're supposed to be taught to be good bourgeois, to maybe beyond bourgeois people once we and Americans once we reach the professional level.
Yeah.
We're supposed to, you can still do the hula,
Yeah.
you can still play the ukulele, and you can still be in your professional organization, but you're not supposed to be radical.
You still have to fit into this box that we
Exactly.
created
Yeah.
for you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying is for them, for the viewers who are thinking of getting into those fields, to expect that they're going to be hitting a system that is Americanized, to not have it be a surprise, and frankly, it's something they're going to have to find a way through
Exactly.
to get to the other side, so then they can be who they are
Right.
when they come out that system. And we also want to recognize that that system is very good at molding people into that way. So they have to be strong
Yes.
to experience that and yet come out the other side still true to themselves. Yes.
Exactly.
How did you do that?
I think, I mean, I would like to credit Kupuna. I mean, my parents. I'd like to credit my Hanai mom, Lynette Cruz, different people in the community, Dr. Blaisdell. Certainly, I think, she's only 2 years old, but for the past 2 years, my daughter, has really, she's been such an amazing
Yeah.
inspiration to me to strive to be better, to be a better parent, to be a better person, to be a better physician.
Great. So those viewers who are looking to go into a system like that, they need to find somebody around them, probably in their family, in their ohana, who have been strong for them for some time and who have inspired them, who they can look to as kind of like their rock, a person to go to, who will say, when times are tough, hey, keep going, you're almost there, you're almost out the other side, you can probably see light at the other end of the tunnel, yes?
Well, of course, and always akua.
Yes.
And whatever person's spirituality is I think essential to holding on to their identity. To be able to continue to practice whatever that spirituality, whether it be traditional. I know there's not too many traditional practitioners left, but traditional or Christian or Buddhist or whatever, that's to me kind of fundamental to holding on.
So to remember who you are fundamentally and never buy into any system that begins to tell you you're somebody you're not.
Yes.
Remember who you are, stay true to who you are, and always have somebody who is strong, who you can come back to be malamed, to be
Right.
taken care of,
Fundamental.
to restore that strength.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Great. Well, Kawika, it's been a wonderful experience to have you on the show here. You've been an inspiration. What you've accomplished has deeply inspired me, so I want to thank you for going through that system, making sure you stayed strong to come out the other end
Mahalo.
and be who you are. Thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate it. Stay strong.
Aloha.
Aloha. Okay, this has been Voices of Truth, one-on-one with Hawaii's Future, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. I'm Ehukekahu Cardwell, and until next time, ahui ho!